Why in the world would a man want a plural wife? Want to take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 women and support them and their children when women are walking the streets begging for companionship and you don't have to marry them? Just go have them, turn them loose, take care of yourself, feed yourself, everything else. Plural marriage, celestial marriage as we call it, is not for sex. We have entirely a different attitude toward it entirely. Because just like I said, if it was sex that we wanted, you can get it anywhere, free, everywhere. I love my women. They are my jewels from heaven, and so are my posterity. And sex is way down the line is importance.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you John Llewellyn. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
John, today I'd like you to tell us about Hill versus Allred.
But what it involves is the theft of $1.54 million from a lady named Virginia Hill. As it happened, her mother and her uncle were members of a small fundamentalist group in the making, headed by a man named John Sugar. Sugar talked Virginia into buying a ranch, and she was going to pay cash for it. She had accumulated $3.5 million in cash, and this John Sugar impressed her as a honest ecclesiastical member, and he was keeping all of that money in trust as she traveled back and forth to Detroit. Well, Sugar had been a bishop and a member in good standing with Apostolic United Brethren. He and Owen Allred together tried to purchase the Deseret Inn Ranch, which was the Las Vegas mob's recreational ranch in St. George, just outside of St. George, Utah. In a beautiful location. But Sugar was obsessed with getting this ranch. So, but he couldn't purchase the ranch himself because he was on the outs with Herb Fletcher, the owner. So he enlisted the help of who he thought was a soulmate, a man by the name of Dennis Matthews, who was still a part of Apostolic United Brethren in good standing and somewhat of a confidant to Owen Allred. So they took possession of $1 million. They sealed it in food storage gallon cans to transport it to Salt Lake. Now, instead of purchasing the ranch or going about the mechanics of the purchase, they went directly to Owen Allred, who was their spiritual leader. So in the meeting, Matthews and Putphin told him that a wealthy woman who wanted to repent for who knows what had donated a large sum of money to John Sugar. And John Sugar wanted Dennis to purchase the DI ranch. So they asked him if he wouldn't inquire of the Lord to see what they should do with this money. Should they go ahead and purchase the ranch as they agreed to? Should they keep the money? Should they give it back? Just what should they do? Well, there was a little hesitation on the tape recording, and no one came back and said, we won't give the money back. We'll purchase the ranch for ourselves, and then we will pay off the Granite Ranch.
Fundamentalist women, plural marriage is a source of great happiness. June, Linda, Beth, and Shirley are all married to the same man, Tom Green.
Yeah, I don't have any money.
To avoid going out to work, they take in sewing at home. They say they're a sisterhood which shares cooking, childcare, and work for the family. They also share Tom.
We'd rather have 25% of a 100% man than to have 100% of a 25% man.
Is Tom 100%?
Absolutely.
All the way.
We think he is.
How old are you, Linda?
17.
And how long have you been married?
About 3 years. I was in love and wanted to be married and didn't see why any reason I should wait, you know, because there wasn't anything for me to learn. I was ready to be a wife and a mother.
Confusingly, all 4 wives are related to each other by more than just marriage.
June is my mother, and Beth is my aunt, and Linda is Beth's daughter. So
we're cousins.
we're cousins.
Some people might find that rather strange that kind of you and your mother are married to the same man.
Well, I married him first, and about a year after I had been married, then she got married to him.
What did you think of that?
I thought it was neat. I was hoping it would happen when I got married to him.
Such complex family relationships are unusual even among fundamentalists.
I was a deputy sheriff for 23 years. I started in 1957. I left for a couple of years, was an insurance adjuster. Most of my time was spent as a detective, either in the juvenile division or the detective division. For 8 years, I headed up the sex crime squad. I've investigated every type of crime imaginable except for treason. I assisted the homicide squad in trying to find Ted Bundy, serial murderers and serial rapists. But the case, the civil case, Hill versus Allred and the others, had to be the most important, the cream de cream, the frosting on the cake of my investigative career, because it so many different facets, the challenge that was involved there. So I've had a lot of experience in investigating. The psychological battle with these people was actually more important and set the stage for the legal battle. And if it hadn't have been for my involvement in polygamy and with AUB and my partners, we would not have been able to build this case. And so nobody really gave me much of a chance of bringing this to a successful conclusion. Well, it so happened that I was up to Ann Wild's house. She was the, well, you know who she is. She's one of the directors of Voices in Harmony and principal voices of pro-polygamy movement, which is another story. But while there, she introduced me to a guy named Tom Green. And I found out that Tom was a polygamist, but also a pedophile. But he had property out in Snake Valley next to the Granite Ranch. So I told him my story, and he says, hey, I'm the paralegal for an attorney by the name of Don Red up in Layton. And I will tell him about your story, and maybe I can get you an interview, and you can make a presentation. So he did arrange that, and Don Red too agreed to take the case. Tom Green was to be the paralegal to help him, and I was to be the investigator.
She's 14.
You know, how much education does a person have to have before they're ready to find the person that they're going to be with for the rest of their life?
Oh, gosh!
In our society in America, half of the marriages end in divorce. Now, are those people 14 when they get married? I mean,
no one is suggesting.
No, I mean, there's people in their 30s or 40s who are, maybe when you go through your midlife change, maybe you should wait till then and say, well, now I'm ready to get married. I've got all the wild hairs out of my system, and now I can find the one. I mean, who knows at any age?
There is a great difference, Tom, in all due fairness, there is a great difference telling someone to wait to midlife and saying, pick up a child that is 14.
My question, Jerry, is if all this waiting is so effective, why aren't the marriages more successful in America?
There are all kinds of reasons marriages don't work.
They have more successful marriages than a lot of the people in this society. They have more happiness, more fulfillment, more opportunities.
They have no equality. They have to share you. There are certain nights that they get to come into your room.
I suppose if that's a big deal to a person, they shouldn't get involved in a relationship like this.
Yes, but you know what? Interestingly enough, you always seem, and tell me if I'm wrong, but most of the wives that you have, you always married them when they were still children. You don't wait for a grown adult to come and say, this is a great idea. You marry them when your other wife was 14 or 15 too, wasn't she? So you're always taking children. You know what? If I take a 14-year-old kid, I can convince that kid of anything and say, hey, you know what? If you get to see me once every 2 months, that's happiness. And if that's all the kid knows, the kid will believe that's happiness.
And the one thing that these people don't want you to do is to tell the truth and to tell it as you see it. And of course, once I decided, hey, this whole system is all wrong. It's nothing but an illusion and deception after deception. There's crime and corruption. I want no more part about it to do with it. I started telling what I saw as the truth, and I reinforced it with evidence. He had an acolyte, a guy that palled around with him by the name of Aldridge, and they had a falling out. And Aldridge met with me and told me a lot of the factual things that went on with these young girls and Tom. And according to Aldridge, in his house, Tom and Linda spent the night together in a bedroom by themselves at age 12. And she was
Wow. Wow.
But here's another thing. Tom kept telling me, he says, look, I'm the paralegal, so when you get a document, I have to have the original documents because I'm the paralegal. So after he's in prison and everything, and we're going to court, and Don Red, the attorney, calls me up and says, hey, John, I need the originals of these different documents. And I says, well, you've got them. He says, no, I haven't. And I says, well, I gave them to Tom. He said that he had to have them. So Tom's got them. Well, Tom was in prison at the time. And then I find out from Aldridge that Tom wanted all these original documents because he was gonna tell the attorney, look, I have all these documents which you need to go to court on. Unless I get a certain percentage of the judgment, you're not getting these documents.
Whoa.
So here I thought that Tom Green was a good polygamist trying to expose the bad polygamist. He was every bit as bad as the rest of them, if not worse.